What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett as he gives the final injury report ahead of the Broncos' Week 16 matchup versus the Los Angeles Rams. Plus, Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla joins the show for a game preview. All that and more coming up. The Broncos hit the road tomorrow to head to Los Angeles to take on the Rams on Christmas Day at SoFi Stadium. Head coach Nathaniel Hackett talked for the final time today ahead of Sunday's game, and he talked about how he'll look to balance the run game that we saw last week versus the Cardinals in the past game with Russell Wilson that we saw versus the Chiefs 2 weeks ago.
It's a great question. You always want to have it a perfect 50-50 balance as much as you can. For us, we want to continually run the football. That's always important. That's the offense's best friend. To be able to run the football, it helps you with play pass, helps you with so many different things that you do. And then mix up some of the passes that we use there. So as we continually build this thing, we want to be sure that we're getting a nice 50-50 mix for the defense to prepare for.
Plus, Rams defensive lineman Aaron Donald was ruled out of Sunday's game, and Coach Hackett talked about what this might mean for the Broncos and just gave his thoughts on this Rams defense.
He's a great player. He's one of the best players to ever put a helmet on. There's no question about that. And I'm not going to say I'm upset that he's not playing, but they have a very good football team, very good defense. I mean, 91 is a beast inside. They've got really good players. 54 is playing at a super high level. Wagner, I mean, all these guys, Jalen. I mean, they got a really good defense. And anytime you have a guy like that, I mean, he always is going to make the defense better. But their defense, overall is very good. So we have a great challenge ahead of us.
Now it's time to take a look at today's injury report. Coach Hackett ruled out wide receiver Kendall Hinton and tackle Calvin Anderson, outside linebacker Randy Gregory, running back Latavius Murray, guard Dalton Reisner, cornerback K'Wan Williams, and wide receiver Courtland Sutton were all listed as questionable for Sunday's game. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for a game preview is Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla. Aric, appreciate you joining me again on this Friday. Excited to spend Christmas in LA?
So excited,
Yeah.
Sydney. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Happy we'll all be able to be there together.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, Aric, Russell Wilson, he will be, of course, back out on the field this weekend. I know he's really excited just to get back out there. Hoping to see this offense kind of pick up where they left off in Week 14 when he was out there versus the Chiefs. What do you just hope to see from them as they continue to build off just that momentum?
Yeah, scoring more points, a four-quarter performance. I think that's one thing we haven't seen yet in both of these games where the Broncos have done well. It hasn't been a full game effort. Against the Chiefs, it was the second and third quarter where you have that big span of that big run of points. And then, of course, this past weekend, getting the win over Arizona, really a second half turnaround for the Broncos, who had scored just 3 points at halftime. So get going a little bit earlier, see if you can show that this is sustainable throughout a whole game, because I think that, as this evaluation goes forward of what do you do going into next year, every data point is critical, and every quarter, every possession, every game is really meaningful still, I think. So you've got to be able to show that this offensive outburst is not just it's not just limited to a 4 or 5 minute stretch there or to the second half. It's got to be a real effort throughout the game. And I think the way you do that is by balancing what you did against the Chiefs, which was throw the ball a lot and have Russ use his legs, and then lean on the ground game that was so successful against Arizona. And I asked Nathaniel Hackett, how do you do that? How do you find that balance? And he said, that's kind of the magic question there, is how do you make both things work? We'll see if the Broncos are able to do that against the Rams.
Well, we saw the injury report earlier in the show. Courtland Sutton, he is questionable for this weekend's game, but I know Coach Hackett has said a couple times this week that he's really hopeful Courtland will be out there on Sunday. So, Aric, how do you expect what do you expect from him as he returns, and how do you expect this coaching staff to use him and both Jerry Jeudy? As we know, Jerry's been playing Courtland's position the past couple weeks.
Yeah, they moved him to that X position at receiver. I'll be really interested to see what they do. If they move Courtland back there and shift Jeudy back over, if they try to put Courtland somewhere else and leave Jerry at that X spot. Yeah. I think the difficulty is, of course, is that, if you keep Jerry there, now you're making Courtland move as opposed to bringing Courtland back to somewhere he's comfortable, putting Jerry somewhere he's comfortable as well. Right. I think what you'll end up seeing is a mix, in that Nathaniel Hackett talked about, we're going to move these guys around. It's not going to be the same thing throughout the entire game. And so I think there's a really good chance that at times you could see Cortland Sutton there in that backside X position. There's times you could see Jerry Jeudy there. They're going to move these guys around to try to create matchups. I think ultimately this is a good thing for Jerry Jeudy because he might get fewer targets, but I think overall he's going to get better opportunities just because the defense is going to have to pay attention to Cortland Sutton.
Right.
And so maybe it's fewer catches, maybe it's 5 catches, but it's for more yards because the defense isn't able to put a safety over the top, or they're not able to, to press him at the line and then have a guy waiting in zone coverage. I mean, there's just some things here that are trickier it's trickier for the defense to do that when you've got Cortland out there too. So we'll have to see, but I think it's going to be good for the offense overall.
Well, additionally, Coach Hackett said that he's really hopeful to see running back Chase Edmonds out there this week. Obviously, he was activated off the IR earlier in the week. What do you think he really adds to this running backs room? As we mentioned, the run game we've seen it start to get going the past couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, do they make that final move to bring him off IR? But all signs are pointing to yes. He would be the final guy that they can bring off IR. So that would mean Lloyd Cushenberry is done for the season. So they got to make a decision there. But I think Chase just adds to this backfield. Obviously, Latavius Murray limited in practice late in the week. He's questionable, so you got to see how much he's able to give you. Right. But I think Chase is kind of a similar guy to Marlon Mack, a change of pace back, a smaller guy who's quick. He can hit the hole and be gone. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think the more guys you have like that, the better. And I think I can't remember what game it was. He didn't play very much before getting hurt, so it might have been Tennessee. But they lined him up in the slot a couple of times. That's something that maybe you see again this week. Anywhere the Broncos can find a mismatch against a linebacker or a corner, they're going to look to do that. And Chase is one of those guys that could help provide that mismatch.
Well, Aric, it was announced today that Rams defensive lineman Aaron Donald, he will be out of Sunday's game. Might not play again for the rest of the season here. Don't want to say it's a good thing, but it's definitely a good thing for the Broncos this weekend. But, I mean, the Rams defense, they're pretty good. What have you really seen from them, Aric, that our offense should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be a unit that is aggressive. They're going to try to take the football away. Obviously, without Aaron Donald, they're a little bit more limited. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. This guy is incredible, and I was a little worried about how the Broncos' interior offensive line was going to fare going up against Aaron Donald. So definitely is good for Russell Wilson's safety and his health for Aaron Donald not to play this weekend. But this group up front, they're still going to get after you. Still have Bobby Wagner there at linebacker. Jalen Ramsey, still obviously a really aggressive, good cornerback there on the outside that'll be a challenge for either Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. So they've still got the pieces. And they're going to challenge you. They're going to test you. This is not a defense that's going to sit back. So it should be a good matchup, a good test for the Broncos. But when a defense is missing a guy like Aaron Donald, you do have to take advantage. And so the Broncos have to be able to run the football. They've got to be able to put up points. Yep. There are still good players on this defense, but the Broncos need to show that they can take advantage against this group.
And Rams quarterback Baker Mayfield, he's had a crazy couple weeks. Well, really a crazy season, but a crazy couple weeks with the Rams. Came in 2 days later, won that game on Thursday night versus the Raiders, and then last week, fell to the Packers on Monday night. So I guess what have you thought about his performances, and what do you think this defense maybe should be on the lookout for? Yeah,
I mean, I think Baker obviously has the talent of a first overall pick, which he showed when he was taken back, 2018 by the Cleveland Browns. So we know he has that type of talent, makes some plays with his legs. He can make those throws in rhythm. I think this scheme probably fits him better. It's closer to what he was doing in Cleveland than when he was in Carolina. So those things are all good for Baker. Obviously, he's the ultimate competitor. So we see him walking around smashing his face into people with helmets on. So he's going to do everything he can to try to win this football game for the Rams. But it is going to be a little bit of a struggle for that offense. They haven't scored 24 points since week 6 and just once since the start of week 3. So it's been tough sledding for them, just like the Broncos. Obviously missing Cooper Kupp, Ben Skoranek, who was another guy that made a big catch in that win over the Raiders. He's gone. So they're down some guys. And I think the key for the Broncos is when you play a team like this, one, can you force turnovers so that you can take them out of the rhythm, shake them up a little bit, make sure you get a lead. And that's the second element, which is, can you put teams away when you have the chance? And we saw the Broncos do that against the Cardinals for the first time all season. They built a 15-point lead, and they were able to hold on for a 2-possession win. It's hard for teams when it gets late in the fourth quarter and you're down by 2 scores. If you can do that, you've got a really good chance, obviously. I think what the Broncos don't want to do is have this come down to the final minutes of the fourth quarter. It's a 1-possession game again, because Baker has shown already in a very short period of time that with Sean McVay there, who's in his headset saying, look for this, or, they probably don't have the whole playbook at this point. He's just saying, hey, look for this slant first, and then, hit the flat if it's not there. Do this, and then get this guy out of bounds. Get up to the line. I mean, Sean McVay's he's an offensive genius, and that's where he's really able to help. So if you can prevent that situation from ever occurring and find a way to just kind of get ahead of these guys, it'll prevent Baker from making some of that magic.
Certainly. And it'll be fun to play on Christmas, being prime time. Broncos are back in prime time, so should be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Excited to get away from
Slime
the cold.
time.
Slime time, you're right. Nickelodeon as well. Yeah. Well, Aric, appreciate your insight always, and looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, you got it, Sid.
And looking ahead, Coach Hackett updated this weekend's schedule so that the players have more time to spend with their families for the holidays.
Yes, we're going to have some of our meetings this afternoon, so we'll be done a little bit later today so that everybody could come in later. So we'll do our walkthrough at around noon tomorrow, so everybody gets the mornings with their family, so we can have a little bit of Christmas before Christmas.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget, kickoff is at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time this Sunday. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and happy holidays. I will meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube Monday following the game.